This video will show you 3 epiphanies that completely changed the way I see the world. I'm going to share with you perspectives that I've had that have allowed that to happen and how you can do that as well. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video we're going to be more specifically talking about some epiphanies, some beliefs, some truths that we can come to understand that can totally revolutionize the way we see the world. Now, as I say in a lot of my vids, we always get a reflection of what we believe to be true. So if we change and have a couple new perspectives of how we see the world in general, or how we relate to the outer environment, that barrier, that relation is what's going to completely change everything about what we experience. So this is when, of course, we can get very, buckled down on what are our beliefs and our definitions about who we are. What are we constantly saying? Are we saying that life is easy, that life is hard, that these things always happen? These kind of blanket statements will filter, will have like a perceptual lens over the way we see the world, and that will influence what we experience. Now, this is the key and this is the power that I want to share with you. Now, the first idea that completely revolutionized the way that I see the world is and has to do with believing and knowing that from my level of awareness, from the way that I think, that life in a way is like a game. Now the reason I say that is because however we say life is like is going to be the experience that we have. Now when I say that life is like a game, what I mean by that is that in a way we are playing along with certain narratives. There's certain levels of the way we see the world, and if we believe that life is in some way set, if we believe that everything's already determined, then what happens is we don't feel like there's much power, there's not much choice. Now when I say that at the same time life is a game, what this means is that we have the ability to have fun with what we experience in life, because in a way we're logged into a game. We are immortal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences. Now that's my perspective, that's how I think, so I'm not saying everyone has to think like this, but that completely revolutionized and changed the way I saw the world, because rather than everything being so serious and everything being so serious when it comes to life and death, I started to see it from a new point of view. I started to see it from a more expanded point of view, because I then noticed that life is what we make it, and that life goes on even after what we could call death. Now that's just my perspective. I'm not saying everyone has to have that perspective, but this also means that there's a lot of power in choice, because we can choose what we believe to be true. We can choose the kind of things that happen. We can choose our own perspectives, and as we choose our own perspectives, that's how everything then begins to change. So this is something that I began to really play around with, I think about 8 years ago, probably. I remember that's when I worked at Nordstrom's, a sales commission job, and I just realized that with sales commission especially, I could see a direct correlation between what I was selling to what I was making as far as finances go and how much money I was making. And I realized that I could kind of play around with the way that I thought about it. This is before I went really deep on the law of attraction and understanding more about all the metaphysics side of it. But I started to play around with it, and I started to realize the more fun I had, the easier things happened. So that changed just about everything. Now the second idea that completely transformed the way I see the world was understanding that it's about waking up. Many times we are conditioned to think a certain way. I had my spiritual awakening about 9 or 10 years ago, and when I had it, 9 or 10 years ago, I had it probably 6 or 7 years ago. Time just goes by so fast. It was something that completely changed my life. I then became more of a spiritual person, I guess you could say. I started to realize that everything I believed to be true was conditioned from prior experience, and even neuroscience shows this. Neuroscience that shows that by a certain age, most of the neural networks in your brain are completely already wired. And what we can do is learn to unwire it and to start to condition ourselves in a more powerful way. So knowing that, then, I could then see that a lot of people were still asleep. Now this isn't in a judgmental way, this isn't in like a I'm better than anybody type way, but I realized that when I came out of what I called my spiritual awakening, and I started to realize that life is what we make it, that our thoughts do correlate with what we experience, that even though I was sharing all these ideas with people, it wasn't necessarily the most acceptable type thing. People are like, what happened? Why are you acting like this? Why are you, acting like this? Mainly just, why are you meditating now? Why are you doing these things that you never did before? Because before I had ADHD, I was taking Adderall for it, I had a lot of energy. I still have a lot of energy, but it's much more grounded now. And I remember that it was like all of a sudden I'm talking about meditation, I'm talking about spiritual consciousness, I'm talking about, metaphysics, and people are like, what's going on? And it made me realize that not everyone's ready to necessarily hear it. Not everyone even is going to resonate with it. Not that even what I'm saying is the correct way to go about life in general. I'm just saying this is the way that I think. Now, this is what really changed my life, because then I realized and I came to understand more about the neuroscience of our brain. And we are completely conditioned by our past, and what we must start to do is start to get out of our own comfort zone. We must start to think in a completely new way, and as we start to do that, we will start to condition ourselves in a very powerful way so that we actually are able to change our subconscious mind. Now, this is something actually that I created. I created a free meditation that you can listen to right before you go to bed that allows you to change how you think, how you act, how you feel. You'll start to wire in those emotions of how you prefer to be, and by doing that consistently, you will completely change your subconscious mind. So that's something I'll go ahead and link down below for you guys. It's absolutely free. You just download it, listen to it at least once a day for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll start to feel a difference. And that's why subconscious mind is something that runs our life, because the neural networks in our brain are constantly firing in the same way, which means they are wiring in the same way. So when I became aware of this, the main goal then became, how can I switch things up? How can I start to think differently? And how can I really expand my level of awareness? Now, the third idea that completely transformed my life is when I realized that anything we want to experience in our life is because we believe that we will feel better in the having of it. Now, what this means is that we will put ourselves in a position to where we say, when I get to that future moment over there, when I get that kind of house or that kind of person in my life or that kind of car in my life or whatever it is, then I'll feel okay, then I'll be okay. And in reality, what we're doing is we're giving ourselves permission that once those things are in our life, we will then give ourselves permission to release the hormones and release the neurochemicals that make us feel satisfied or make us feel more of the dopamine and the serotonin. But the funny thing is that we can decide to feel those right now by conditioning ourselves to know that we can feel happy right now, we can give ourselves permission to feel now, and that by doing that, the paradox is that those things actually come to us quicker because we are resonating with that experience, we are resonating with that opportunity, and then we'll start to see those come into our life. So that was a game changer for me, because then it became not so much how can I get over there, how can I become more here right now, more present to the moment, and embody the emotions, embody the states of being that are necessary in order to then see those opportunities in my life to then quote unquote get what I want. You see what I mean? It's a completely new perspective, and that really changed the way that I saw the whole process, because then it became more about allowing rather than forcing, rather than my ego trying to control everything. And the moment I did that, the moment I let go of a whole bunch of burden. So these three things completely transformed my life. They completely transformed the way that I see the whole world, and all it had to do with changing the metaphor that I used about life in general, how I relate to life in general, and that was seeing life as more of a game, knowing that we are all immortal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences, that as I went about it in that way, it felt so much better, it felt so much different. I could then consciously choose what I wanted to experience. And then secondly, knowing that most of what I believe to be true is just simply conditioned from past experience, that what I can do is expand my level of awareness, wake up to who I really am, and then that began to change just about everything. And then thirdly, as I was able to really dial in and see that everything in life is fundamentally something we can always feel now. Everything we want is because we believe we will feel better in the having of it. And by knowing that, I can then begin to resonate with the kind of experiences I want, so that things actually happen in a much more allowing way, free of the ego trying to control it, and knowing that as I do that, things fall into place. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the little notification gear. The way YouTube does things now is you actually have to hit that button in order to see the daily videos that I do. And other than that, I'll see you guys on the next vid. Peace, much love, namaste.